You are so delicate and so vulnerable. Hydra's fangs are all over your body. You're filthy sweet, you're mine. In a creepy way. In the opening scene of the film, the songs of the T-Rex band, we'll talk about today. As a love letter to the horror genre, the killers see the bodies he left behind as a muse full of American beauty sent to the devil. But the only thing we see is filth, distortion, and inhumanity. On the other hand, the audience themselves, even knowing they'll be haunted by the sick, dirty and evil, still want to go to the cinema to see a beautifully crafted product, pleasing to the eye. That's probably the compelling contradiction of the horror genre. Sweet in a filthy way. And if you're addicted to that heart-stopping feeling, there's no reason why you should miss Longlegs, a surprise of 2024. Following the trail of a serial killer with a very strange name, Longlegs, directed by Osgood Perkins, made a big splash by awakening curiosity, as well as bringing viewers to the deep hidden messages that we have to search for. What will it feel like to live under a house full of secrets? Will lies justified by love really be good? Or will it lead to a more terrible tragedy? Are you ready? Today, let's analyze with film focused and decipher the Longlegs murder case. The killer who murdered without being present at the scene. Note that this video will reveal all the important content, so consider this before continuing. First, let's go through the plot's premise, which has many similarities with Silence of the Lambs in 1991. Longlegs starts with a young officer named Lee Hawker. Contrary to her timid, unapproachable, and somewhat eccentric personality, she's a very talented agent. She also has an incredibly sharp intuition. During one investigation, just by looking at the house, Lee could immediately tell that's where the killer was hiding. With an impressive record, her superiors decided to give her the responsibility to chase a killer who had been giving the police a headache for decades. He was called Longlegs. The ghost always left an encoded letter at each crime scene, the unfortunate families that were murdered. However, the strange thing is that in almost all the cases, the father was the real killer. He would kill all the family members, then use the weapon in his hand to reunite with them in the other world. Therefore, at the scene, there were no traces of Longlegs at all. It was as if he had the power to control and make others go insane. The only thing the families had in common was that they all had a daughter whose birthday was on the 14th. And the letters contained content related to the worship of evil spirits. With her superior intellect and an almost instinctive urge, Lee finally deciphered the letters, but only to remember a chilling truth that her birthday was also on the 14th. And on a gloomy morning when she was 9 years old, she accidentally captured the killer's portrait. He was called Dale Cobble, a doll maker with a face severely affected by plastic surgery. He worshipped the devil. He disguised himself as a churchgoer, giving gifts to families whose children were about to have birthdays. Just accepting the evil will inside the doll would drive the father mad, thus leading to the massacres. However, Lee quickly deduced that Cobble's odd appearance couldn't have won the victim's sympathy. He must have had an accomplice, someone who went door to door ringing the bell with a charming smile. And that person, sadly, was no other than her mother. From here, the terrifying past is revealed. On a snowy winter day in 1974, Longlegs visited the house of the mother and daughter with a gift. Lee accidentally captured his face, but nothing could stop the sick. Desperate, her mother made a deal with the devil to save her daughter's life. She would go and deliver the deadly dolls to each victim's house. In return, Lee would be able to grow up normally. Finally, in a desperate attempt, Lee had to kill her own mother with her own hands to stop the 11th family's murder. Although she was late, Lee managed to save little Ruby, who had been driven insane by the doll. With a gun in hand, she pointed it at the demonic toy. But strangely, she couldn't pull the trigger. The film ends abruptly, and we only hear the sick laughter of Longlegs with the chant, "Satan, forever." So what's the real meaning of this whole story? Let's try to dissect the symbolic details to lift the veil of secrecy. Although it's a detective story, it's not hard to see that supernatural elements play a crucial role. In the second half of the film, the real killer's shadow is the devil. Satan has appeared. But if you're observant, you can see he's been with Lee since the beginning of the film, showing that everything has been manipulated and controlled. So why does the devil need the young investigator? Why didn't he spare the victims before? Why did he only agree with Lee's mother? As we know from the case files, the father was always the first person to lose control and kill the rest of the family members. But throughout the film, we've never seen the father's shadow in Lee's family, just her and her mother. Therefore, even though Cobble said he gave her mother the choice between crimson or clover, meaning accepting the gift and watching Lee be killed, or kneeling down and serving Satan. But I think that's not true, because even when her mother became an accomplice, we've never seen anyone being allowed to make a similar choice. Therefore, we can tentatively deduce that from the beginning, Longlegs' intention was not to kill Lee. She was a special case, a girl watched over by Satan himself. According to the agreement, Longlegs would reside in the family's basement to make dolls. This detail is shown in the sound. At the beginning of the film, cuckoo is the sound of a cuckoo bird, which lays its eggs in other birds' nests. And cuckooing is also a term referring to someone who takes over another person's house for illegal activities. Longlegs stuck to the Lee family, and you could also say, had turned himself into the missing father figure. This detail is alluded to in the special test of the FBI force. If you pay attention, you'll see that when looking at the triangle, the most obvious symbol of the devil, Lee said she thought of her father. That maybe her father was a heretic. Or crazier, she's the daughter of Satan. And Longlegs' servant had come on her 9th birthday to pick her up. Lee was also given a doll of her own. And like the others, inside its head contained a hollow metal piece. Following the trail of the lucky survivors is Carrie Ant, we know that. That metal piece, like a memory blocker for the host. All the little girls, after receiving the gift, almost forget everything. Everything becomes numb. Now we remember. Lee also has a very eccentric personality and way of interacting. At the same time, knowing why she has psychic abilities, as well as immediately deciphering the letters, Satan himself gave it to Lee and locked away the memory of the killer, living under the basement that the young girl keeps looking for. In the opening investigation scene, we see the criminal shooting the FBI as soon as they ring the doorbell, but is strangely docile when he sees Lee. It's possible that he knows she's the one Satan has chosen, so he doesn't dare hurt her. And so the plan goes smoothly. Lee's mother thinks she has the right to choose to blow up the doll so her mind is freed. But it's all a trap that was set to regain her memory and free will. Lee goes to stop the 11th family massacre. However, in her attempt to carry out justice, she has to shoot her own mother to protect the victim. No different from the fathers that did to their loved ones with a bullet shaped like a cross. This is like an act of baptism. But when she pointed the gun at the doll, Lee couldn't pull the trigger. As I understand it, the reason is that the little girl Lee just saved will become the new hostage. Like her mother. The agreement will be to drive the little girl who just had her birthday insane and to death, or become the new Longlegs. The protagonist's decision is not revealed. But with Cobble's laughter, the devil probably won. If you pay attention, you can see that no less than twice, Lee mother was filmed from an angle that revealed her legs, implying that she was Longlegs' accomplice. As for the protagonist, the scenes where she drives look exactly like the doll-making killer. And if I'm not mistaken, the unfortunate family's cat in this scene hisses when it sees the investigator. Her shadow is the devil. And her dropping the gun at the end of the film is probably her surrender. 38 people in total. And as Lee deciphered, the day they died perfectly forms the shape of a triangle, a symbol of Satan's cunning. A tragedy that was preordained before it began. From the year she turned 9, Lee was destined to become the next Longlegs. And the reason why this killer figure has to keep changing is probably in this scene. Cobble was too ugly, so the children immediately rejected him. Lee's mother was also old, so Satan needed someone younger, so that the families would continue to receive the gifts. The dolls would make them grab knives and cut their own family members. So the whole story about that Longlegs is entirely just the devil's amusement. Or does he have a bigger purpose? To understand that, we need to look closely at the letter Longlegs sent to Lee. We will be standing on the sand by the sea. This is a detail that directly links to the book of Revelation, which is also mentioned in the film. Accordingly, the devil is described as a red dragon, but could also be understood as a serpent. He's the snake who tempted Eve to eat the forbidden fruit in the Garden of Eden, and we see no less than twice in the film. Lee has thoughts related to the snake, Lee's mother. In the final scene, she pulls out a knife shaped like a snake to help herself. Satan has summoned his disciple, the beast from the sea, or the beast from the sea. In the book of Revelation, chapter 13, it says, "Then I saw a beast rising up out of the sea. It had 10 horns and 7 heads. On its 10 horns were crowns, and on its heads were blasphemous names. And the dragon gave him his power and his throne and great authority, as well as great power. And all the earth marveled and followed after the beast." If we apply it to the film, we have the dragon, the serpent, or the devil Satan, actually exists in the form of Cobble, the doll maker. And the whole journey is actually to summon the beast from the sea. Or Lee Hawker herself. She was chosen to become the disciple of Satan, the devil. And together, both of them will bring calamity to the miserable people. We see Lee's mother dressed like a nun and watching the unfortunate victims die, showing blasphemy against the image of Christianity. This also coincides with the lyrics of the band T-Rex that was mentioned at the beginning of the video. It's the body of a woman left with teeth marks by Hydra, or the devil himself. Therefore, it can be understood that Longlegs, in essence, is a story in the book of Revelation, told in modern times. And perhaps the details are packed densely, enough for horror fans to dissect comfortably and come up with hypotheses. Finally, with Longlegs, director Osgood Perkins wants to tell a private story. Inspired by his own childhood. You might not know. The 50-year-old filmmaker actually was born into a very famous family. His father was the actor Anthony Perkins, who played the killer Norman Bates in the classic Psycho. His mother, Barry Berenson, was a model and photographer. However, Anthony later died of AIDS complications, and the actor's partner was one of the victims of the terrorist attack of 9/11. Sharing with the press, O.S. Perkins said that his childhood was always lived under a shield of protection. His father was a man with two lives. You could call my father gay or bisexual. The director said that Hollywood at that time wasn't as progressive as it is today, so stories like those were never mentioned in the family. A father with a huge aura, but distant. A mother who always avoided major issues. That disconnection inspired the director to create Longlegs, a story where the mother lies to her daughter because she wanted to protect her. But as we saw, there was something cold between them. And in the end, that love couldn't salvage a tragedy full of tears, although not entirely based on personal experience. In some ways, in this devilish story, we see the image of a broken family. In conclusion, I think Longlegs is a decent film. Creative and heartfelt, with inspiration that is very clearly taken from Silence of the Lambs. Most notably the figure of the female investigator. Intelligent and brave. If Clarice Starling was haunted by the cries of the lambs, then Lee Hawker was also haunted by the doll in her mind. Both carry with them childhood wounds that are difficult to heal. However, for that very reason, when placing these two films side by side, we see the weaknesses that still exist. First, using half the runtime to build the detective story, only to explain that everything is due to the supernatural power of the devil, can easily leave many viewers feeling let down. Especially in the third act. The mother recounting everything that happened in a very clumsy way seriously violates the unwritten rule. Show don't tell. The viewers are focused on piecing together clues. But in the end, the answer falls from the sky too easily, so to be fair, the film's praise is a little overblown. And it's still inferior to Pearl and Barbarian, the 2021 Golden Raspberry Award winner. Titani by a notch. Before considering the title of Scariest Film of the Decade. However, the dedication and beauty of Longlegs is undeniable. The cinematic frames create a very good atmosphere of tension, of a story that makes us search for explanations. So that's probably enough to deserve praise. And it deserves to be enjoyed in theaters. Our explanation video ends here. See you again on the release of other films that are also highly anticipated. And now, goodbye, and enjoy the film.